kind of a response to stimuli, to different form of experience, which is different from experiencing pain. But still, if you do not want to give that kind of a excitement or stimulus to the plant, if you feel so kind to plants, there are options. So in the path of vegetarianism, there are a lot of options. So for example, say fruits, flowers and leaves. So you may be so compassionate to plants that you may feel, okay, I will not pluck the fruit or pluck the leaves. Then you have an option to naturally the fruits falling from the plant and gathering it. There is option. There are many sages, that live in the forest and in the Himalayas. They don't pluck anything from the plant. It just falls down. And also you can stop eating the whole plant. You can eat only the whole plant when it is dead, like rice and wheat, or you can take only fruits, flowers and vegetables. So that means at least the life is there. You are not killing it. And again, for most plants, if you take one part of the leaf or a sub part of the stem, it again regrows. But the leg of a chicken does not grow. So you can be restricted. So you can have different levels, okay, of different levels of non-violence in the vegetarianism. You can choose. But in the non-vegetarianism, there are no levels of non-violence. It's either killing or non-killing. So that is one point that you have to remember. And one thing which is very important that we often forget, or people who argue about, that okay, we have to kill plants, therefore let's kill animals. That if we are not supposed to kill plants, then nature would have designed us to be visually moved for plant killing action. Now think about when a tiger kills a deer. The tiger does not feel sorry for the deer, because according to the natural food pyramid, the deer is the food for the tiger, and if A is food for B, then B, the psychology of B should be designed by nature in such a way that B does not, feel any pain while killing A. So similarly, for most of us, when we kill an animal or when we see the killing of an animal in front of us, most of us are moved, except very few. Those few are already there when human beings are killed also, right? Very few people are there who are not moved when human beings are killed, and they can kill human beings anytime. So I am not talking about them. I am talking about most common people. So they are moved when animals are killed in front of them. But we are not moved, or we do not feel the same thing when the plants are killed, because plants are our natural food. If plants would not have been our natural food, and if we were not supposed to kill plants also, then we would have been visually impacted. So I would say if I was a tiger, then of course I would have eaten meat. But if I was a deer, I would not have eaten meat. So humans are like deer. So people say that one species survive on another. That is the food pyramid. Yes, that is true. So choose your food, what nature has designed you for and what nature has given you. That's properly following the food pyramid. Yes, one has to kill another to survive on food, but we make the choice. Another important point, I don't know whether it's here already. According to United Nations data, if you look at, they have a report in 2006, it's called Livestock's Long Shadow. You can find it in the net. It has given you statistics that if you eat non-vegetarian food, then you are indirectly killing 10 to 20 times more plants than eating vegetarian food. Because, as was pointed out in the morning also, 80%, 70 to 80% of the total agricultural crop production goes to feed the meat industry. Okay. So, the throughput of total calorie or food that is coming is totally not efficient. So just because of taste, we are running, the whole world is running very inefficient, non-productive process just because of the taste. So, I have seen a slogan in a book which I liked it very much, corresponding to this point, that if you love plants, if you are really moved about plants, then eat them, because then you will cause less plants to kill. Some people say we love plants, then okay, people are loving animals, they are switching to plant-based diet. Some of my some of my own non-vegetarian friends told, okay, I love plants, so therefore I don't eat plants, I eat only non-veg food. So for them, my message is, if you love plants, eat plants, because you will kill less plants. Okay. And there is one math. It takes up to 13 pounds of grain to produce 1 pound of meat. And this I have already mentioned. So 10 billion animals are killed every year in USA and 60 billion in the whole world. And roughly 60 to 70% of plants go to feed them. This is the United Nations data, not my thing. And you can watch a video also in YouTube. In the 2010 meeting of United Nations, all the country heads admitted that a global shift towards a vegetarian diet is needed to save our health, to save our mind, to save the global warming, to save the earth from all kinds of things. That video is there, you can see. But then you can ask that why it is not implemented so fast. Again, the industry is there. You can see the cigarette industry. We know smoking kills, but then why they are being sold? It's not easy for governments of any country to take a drastic step against something that is generating a lot of revenue. So a lot of political issues are there, economic issues are there, but hopefully things will change over time. So the last but not the least point is the spiritual view, but before I go into it, is there any question at this point of time? If not, then I can proceed. Okay. So I say what you think is what you eat. So eating becomes your thinking. Food is not only for the body but also for the mind, intelligence and soul. So these are 4 different levels of our existence. And apart from chemical composition, so earlier we talked about effect of chemicals on mind and brain, like magnesium and other chemicals, hormone producing chemicals, those things. But apart from chemical composition, food also contains subtle energy. I'll give some reference of that also. And what that subtle energy consists of? It consists of the consciousness behind the act of procurement. That means how the food was collected, processed and prepared. That consciousness is also involved in the food. The mood of the person preparing the food or serving the food, that is also one part. And the mood of the person with which the food is eaten. Sometimes we hear our parents saying that, okay, don't eat reluctantly, try to eat enjoyably, then you will digest better. So actually that comes from this fact and is indeed true. And if we look at carefully, all spiritual paths actually emphasize the importance of vegetarianism. Let us look at them. So let's go back to before the beginning of any religion on the world, because if you look at the history of religions, then Judaism is the oldest religion on earth, and it came around 3000 years ago. Christianity was the next religion on earth, that came around 2000 years ago. 2000, then Islam came around roughly 1500 years ago, and other religions were also there, like Buddhism, Jainism, Sikhism and many other things. But the oldest is Judaism, that is 3000 years. Whereas the philosophy that I am talking about here, it's more than that. So these texts like Patanjali's Yoga Sutra, that comes from more than 5000 years back. So this philosophy and these things, so they are, according to me, they are above all religion. And sometimes people say these are part of Hinduism, but I actually differ from them, because the word Hindu does not appear anywhere in any of these literature, in no Vedas, no Upanishads, anywhere. So the people who want to put Hindu label on them, they are either doing business or politics. So these are non-sectarian and non-religious things. So Patanjali's yoga, and nowadays in every country of the world, this importance of yoga has increased, and every people from every religion is trying to practice yoga to control their body and mind. So there are 8 steps in Patanjali's Yoga Sutra: Yama, Niyama, Pranayam, Pratyahar, Asan, Dharan, Dhyan and Samadhi. So basically, Yama means don'ts and Niyama means do's. So basic do's and don'ts. For example, don't tell a lie, be clean all the time, basic civic facts. Then after people are well adversed in Yama and Niyama, they are supposed to do asana, sitting postures. So in many yoga schools nowadays, they directly jump into asana or pranayama, the breath control. The point is, they are supposed to be done after Yama and Niyama. Okay, but otherwise it's a gradual step. So you cannot sit for class 10 exam without passing through class 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, etc. Unless you are a genius. So then it's okay. Maybe you can go to Samadhi directly. That's for very few people. But for normal people, this is the gradual steps. And the first point in Yama, there are 5 points in Yama. The first point is non-violence. And that is related to food. So, Sanatana Dharma, that means the Vedic philosophy, which is beyond all religion, it talks about 3 kinds of food. Sattvic food is not only vegetarian food, because alcohol is also vegetarian, then nicotine is also vegetarian. So, Sattvic food is actually a subset of vegetarian food. Some vegetarian foods are excluded, for example onion, garlic and any intoxicants, tea, coffee, these are excluded. And particularly the characteristic feature is which are not too pungent or not too spicy. Rajasic food classification is, so Sattvic means, if I translate in English, it would be mode of goodness. Rajasic means mode of activity, mode of passion. So onion, garlic, spicy food, stimulants like tea and coffee. And we have seen from medical research, from scientific research, how onion and garlic are not recommended for mental concentration. Tea and coffee are also not recommended. Here spicy means, of course, hot, too spicy, that kind of thing, not turmeric and those kind of spice I'm talking about. Those are important. Tamasic food is like meat, fish, egg, alcohol, opium, any kind of intoxication and so on. And that's totally not recommended. So this is called in English food in the mode of ignorance. Okay. So an example of BKS Iyengar is the modern, so I talked about Patanjali's yoga system, which is many thousand years old. Now let us look at a modern yoga teacher, who is a yoga guru of Aldous Huxley, yoga guru of Yehudi Menuhin, the famous composer, and J. Krishnamurti. He says a vegetarian diet is a necessity for yoga practice, and it is the first step towards non-violence of any humankind. And he was nominated for Nobel Peace Prize in 2014, but he was close to 90 and he died. And because Nobel is not given to any posthumous person, he was not given. And Kailash Tripathi and the other Pakistani lady got it that year. Otherwise he was also nominated. Okay. So from Patanjali, let us look at our Sriti Shastra, that means the later part, like Puranas and Ramayana and Mahabharata, etc. Manusmriti says that having well considered the origin of flesh food and the cruelty of slaying corporal beings, let man entirely abstain from eating flesh. So those who eat meat in the context of religion, they can also see this thing. So in Mahabharata it is said that there are 3 forms of killing. The person who is killing the animal is a killer, the person who is eating also killer, and the person who brings the animal, serves the food, they are also killer. Okay, so this was on Vedic philosophy or Sanatana Dharma or the misnomer Hinduism. Next, Judaism. So in Exodus it is said that you who have compassion for a lamb shall be the shepherd of my people Israel. So definitely it is against meat eating. Later on, eating meat was given as a concession for unavoidable circumstances. For example, if there is a famine, if there is a natural calamity, if there is no corpse available, then to survive, people may have to consume meat, but that concession is not for general, for all the time. So that is the thing. Christianity. Let us look at a verse of Genesis. And the Lord said, I have given you every plant whose seed can be sown, which is upon the face of all earth, and every tree which has the fruit whose seed can be sown, for you shall be eat. But flesh with the life thereof, which is the blood thereof, shall you not eat. And surely your blood of your life will I require. So that means it's talking indirectly about the law of karma. And so that means if you kill something, that will kill you eventually. It is the same thing, because ultimately our religion is the same. Okay. So there are two important historical documents that every Christian regards very, holistically. They are called Clementine Homilies and Recognition of Clementine. These are 3rd century biblical documents, and these documents explicitly support that Christ was a vegetarian. One who tastes meat will never be bestowed mercy of God, and that God never gave commandments to Moses to eat meat. It opposes animal sacrifice and supports strict vegetarianism. And these documents also reject many portions of the Old Testament as letter insertions, because there are many verses in the Old Testament where people have those verses. In many translations it is said that flesh eating is okay, meat can be eaten, something like that. So these documents reject those things as later insertions, probably by people who wanted to eat meat. And the other thing is that I have done some study on different versions of Bible and their evolution. So basically, if you go back to etymology or to linguistics, many of the words that are translated as meat or flesh from the Bible in different versions, even the popularly available versions also, originally they come from Greek words, or Greek etymology. And in Greek language, those words do not mean flesh or meat, they mean only food. So a proper translation would have been food, but people with specific purpose have replaced the translation of food by meat. One reference is The Lost Religion of Jesus by Keith Akers. Then on Islam. One verse from Quran: there is not an animal on earth nor a flying creature, but there are people like you. Okay, in Islam people talk about halal meat and all that, but as far as my understanding goes, after my discussion with a lot of Muslim scholars, if you look at the instruction of halal, again, so they are also like Judaism, it is a concession of circumstances when nothing is available, you have to survive. That is one thing. And the second thing is that if you look at the rituals that are to be performed during halal, that means you have to give least pain, you have to cut. Those are only two things, but other things people don't talk about is that when you kill, you have to look at the eye of the animal, look in the eye of the animal. And then, so long as the animal is still living, until the soul departs the body of the animal, till that time you have to keep looking in the eye of the animal. And then you have to consume that meat. And everyone has to kill their own meat. You cannot go and buy meat. So that is the thing. So that has been distorted over time. And many Muslim scholars themselves believe that even when extraordinary circumstances or natural calamity and that kind of thing, when people have to consume meat, even in that situation, even if people have to kill to survive, still these rituals and injunctions were there that okay, you have to look in the eye of the animal before killing, you have to kill yourself and then eat, not buy from outside. These things were written so that human think when doing the activity that okay, is it the everyday act, or is it my natural food every day? Do I have to repeat it every time? Or there are alternatives? So that is the thing. And Islam has many sects, And if you look at the Sufi sect, all of them are vegetarian, and they also follow Quran. They also do 5 waqts of namaz every day, and they are very respected in all the Muslim community. So all of you know Khwaja Mere Khwaja, right? The song, Ya Rahman. So that's dedicated to Khwaja Mainuddin, who was a great Sufi saint. So, and another example is Sant Kabir. He was also a strong Muslim follower of Quran, and no Muslim can disrespect him as a saint. And Kabir used to write Doha, 4-liners, 2-liners poem. In one of his Doha, he writes, "What use is of roza if in the day you pray to God, and in the evening you come and have a flesh of an animal?" So that is there. One reference: Animals in Islam by Muslim theologian Al-Hafiz B.A. Masri. Another reference by Iranian scholar Al-Ghazali. He is one of the most brilliant philosophers of Islam, acclaimed worldwide. At the age of 28, he was heading the Institute of Islam in Baghdad. His main book, Ihya ul-Din, The Revival of Religious Sciences, is highly respected. In part 2 of this book, page 23, line 17 to 19, he says that the detrimental effects of beef and the virtues of ghee and milk. He says the meat of cow is marz, that is disease. Its milk is safa, that is health. And its ghee is dawa, that is medicine. So, you have seen how people distort. Even in so-called Hinduism or Vedic philosophy, people have distorted things. They have mistranslated, misinterpreted things. And in no spiritual texts of so-called Hinduism or say Vedic Sanatana Dharma, in no spiritual books, this meat eating is justified or killing an animal is justified. And people have distorted, even the so-called Hindus have distorted, and they do bali and sacrifice in the name of religion, which is totally prohibited. It's no longer there, at least as far as I have done research. Next, Jainism and Buddhism on food. That I don't have to explain much, because these two religions were, mostly non-violence. From the very beginning, they promoted no meat eating. Okay. So Mahaparinirvan Sutra is one reference, and Agam Sutras of Jainism teach great reference from all life. So no need to go into detail. Okay. So far I have talked about effect of food on mind and ethical point, spiritual point. The next thing is effect of mind on food. So I will end my talk with a few slides on that. So it's the opposite. So one thing perhaps you have seen common in all religion, be it our Vedic philosophy or so-called Hinduism, be it Islam or Judaism or Christian, the religious people always offer the food to God before consuming it. Okay? So there is one quotation from Bhagavad Gita that people who do not offer the food to God, they eat very sin. So even if it is vegetarian, forget about that. So what's an offering? Offering is nothing but a sign of gratitude. The fact is that in this earth, whatever we are consuming, whether it is oxygen or it's a rice or it's a vegetable, we do not create it in the lab from atoms or molecules. These are gifts of nature. Okay? And we have to be grateful to nature, because nature is providing us, nature or God, whatever you think. And every time you consume, you have to thank in your mind. That can be done in different ways, not any specific ways, but the essence of, reciting prayers before eating something. I have seen Christians doing it, I have seen my Muslim friends doing it, even many Hindus do it, that offering the food to God and praying, that's a sign of gratitude and humility. And that mood actually helps to get real benefit from the food, both physically and psychologically. And that part, that whether proper, if in proper mood if you consume the food, that helps better assimilation of the food. That is proven medically and scientifically also. I will give some reference. So emotions interacting with food. One reference is by Dr. Bernard Grad. He is an ex-associate professor of psychiatry at Nanterre University. Did 36 years of research on how consciousness of human beings affect plant growth, patient healing, and food. And his research was published in Journal of Society for Psychical Research and International Journal of Parapsychology, which are two premier journals in psychiatry worldwide. And one interesting experiment that I have read of his was that, for example, you take plants, okay? You take plants and then you have a solution of water, say with nutrients, and then you want to water the plant. Then you repeat the experiment 2 times, or with two plants of the same size and type and age, same size. One by normal person, and another by a spiritually inclined person who is known to be compassionate and calm, or who is well versed in yoga and so on. So he has shown by experimental data and by scientific data publishing through this journal that the spiritually inclined person, or the more compassionate person, when is the same solution, chemically they are exactly identical, but when that person is pouring that solution to the plant is growing in a better way. It's a more healthy plant and more productive. It's bearing more fruits. So with lots and lots of repetition of the same experiment, he has established the same. Another research is this Vogel is interesting. So he was in IBM San Jose Research Center, and his main area of research was electrical science, electrical engineering, particularly on luminescence, liquid crystals, and he has 32 patents on that subject. But side by side, he also did research on bioenergy fields of human mind. So particularly how the mood of human mind interacts with each other and also interacts with food. So interacts with each other means it's an extension of food and mind. So for example, in Reiki. So in Reiki you have probably heard that there are 3 levels of Reiki. So in level 1, so basically Reiki is kind of a touch therapy. So the level 1 is direct touch. You in a room, the Reiki healer touches the patient and heals it. The second level is subtle touch. That means you don't touch it physically, atomic level. You touch it from a distance. So it's a mental touch. But the healer has to be in the same room of the patient. Otherwise, it cannot be done. Then there is Reiki level 3, where it does not matter where the healer is and the patient is. Even if the patient is in country A and the healer is in country B on the other side of Atlantic or Pacific, still the healer can heal with prayers and mantras. So that was researched by Mr. Vogel. So and also the implication is that apart from nutrients, the food also carries the mood and the state of the mind with which it has been prepared and served. Okay. So I am almost at the final part of my talk. The last part is animal rights. So you see, in 1861, Section 34 of the Police Act in India says that no animal slaughter in public. So, but that is visual pollution, but still it is going on. In 1960, we have the Prevention of Cruelty to Animal Act. This is just to show how we are progressing slowly, but hopefully over time, like nicotine and alcohol, movies will say meat eating is bad, or don't eat meat, or it kills. The US Animal Welfare Act was signed into law in 1966. So there is subtle difference between act and law. In US it was a law, in India it was an act, later it was a law, but still law people do not obey all the time. The religious sacrifice of animals prohibited by Supreme Court of India in 1994. But people find gaps in the law and then they try to justify it. So like that. And in 2000